wanted to make this video about a topic that I haven't talked about much on this channel. We're all excited for what SpaceX and Tesla are doing, but some people believe what Neuralink is doing could turn out to be more important than those other two companies.
Our initial goal is to help people who are like quadriplegics or tetraplegics, like basically, can't move anything, to be able to operate their phone or computer faster than someone who's got working hands.
When I was in Austin, Texas, I had the chance to catch up with Ryan Tanaka. He is the host of Neuropod, and he is in the know about what's going on with Neuralink. So let's get into that conversation.
Neuralink is a fascinating company. They have around 300 employees. Elon Musk is a co-founder, and basically they're working on helping solve neurological illnesses, and in the future, working on merging man with machine so that there's no negative outcomes associated with artificial general intelligence. And so in the shorter term, the idea is to try to help paralyzed people regain the ability to use a computer keyboard and mouse, and then eventually help them be able to walk again or use a lot of their limbs. And so that's extremely inspiring to me, and that's one of the main reasons that I started my podcast. And the way they're planning on doing this is basically having a chip plus electrodes being surgically inserted into the brain, and then translating the electrical signals spikes into usable information that can be processed by the chip and then sent to your phone or other device. At that point, you could basically control like your device with just your brain.
But with the Neuralink, what do you think? Like, do you think there's anything ever? Do you think that could go wrong with it? Like, what if
nothing could ever go wrong?
You got no what if the government?
No, I mean,
what if the government got involved in like Neuralink?
Like I said, Neuralink's like not. It's going to take a long time to advance Neuralink technology. So it's not like it'll suddenly be able to do super advanced things. It'll be like slowly we'll, enable people who are like quadriplegics to be able to control their phone and their, try to live a normal life as much as possible.
Neuralink's ultimate goal is to form a digital brain layer that works in cooperation with existing layers in our natural brain structure.
Yeah, so the way Elon describes it is like, if we can't beat it, we have to join it. And the way to join them is to have an interface that allows us to, interface at the same speed as computers.
But that idea scares some people. Like, some people just are not, I think it creeps them out. Like, do you find that a lot?
Absolutely, yeah. With the podcast, get both sides, super polarizing topic. And a lot of people are super supportive, like I am, especially of the illnesses, or curing illnesses aspiration. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it is an invasive surgery. This surgery for Neuralink's case would be performed by a robot. So that minimizes the risk compared to somebody doing it by hand. Additionally, there would be no general anesthesia required. And so, I think like they're just gonna do as much as they can to make sure that the entire procedure is as safe as possible.
A lot of people ask me, I don't know why they ask me, they should ask you, but like when these human trials are gonna be. So do we have like any indication?
Sure, Elon said that they have submitted their application for FDA human trials. It's sounding like it's gonna happen at the very end of this year or sometime next year.
But they are doing some trials on animals. That's also super controversial. Tell us about that.
Sure. You may have seen that they did like the monkey Mind Pong demonstration where a monkey was able to play the video game Pong with just his mind. That showcases that the tech is real. Yeah, there was some controversy with like the potential mistreatment of the animals. Neuralink has released a statement saying that this group is making claims that they're just not accurate. So this group, the PCRM, wants Neuralink to stop any animal testing at all. But Neuralink, at at the beginning was using dead monkeys, and then they were using monkeys that, I forget the specific term for it, but they're only healthy enough for one anesthetic event. After that anesthetic event, they're supposed to be euthanized anyway, because they wouldn't have a good quality of life after the anesthetic event. So like it was already deemed that that was the case. Then you have those monkeys being used for testing. They have the anesthetic event, and then like the euthanization just goes as originally scheduled. And Neuralink now is doing their absolute best to just test in monkeys and providing them a good environment so that they're as happy and healthy as they can be while doing testing. I think it also should be noted that like Neuralink doesn't force any monkey or animal to participate in a training task. It's never forced to do so. And a lot of the procedures and environment that they have in place is far better than the standards required. Like for example, the space that is typically required for a non-human primate is a small space. It's like 6 square feet by like a foot tall or 2 feet tall, something like that. In Neuralink's case, they provide a space that's 150 times greater and also has a bunch of different elements in the environment that make it more natural for the monkeys to play around.
Are they mainly using monkeys?
Mainly monkeys, also some pigs. From my understanding, rhesus macaques are like pretty comparable to how humans are for like motor cortex testing and stuff.
Right,
like that.
and I mean, my guess would be like the monkeys are kind of crucial to the development of this, right? You kind of have to use live animals, right? I mean, there's really no way around it, is there? Because I feel like this group was trying to claim that there is, and that just doesn't seem to make sense.
Right, I am personally of the same opinion.
Yeah.
Because the alternative is basically, do you just test in humans? I guess you could, but it's like also that's an ethical question of
Right.
whether or not that's the appropriate way to go. So,
Right.
like especially in the case of Neuralink at the beginning, like if there's a monkey that's already dead and you can test on it, then it's already dead. So.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that it's good and bad that Neuralink has so much exposure. But relatively speaking, it's still small compared to like Tesla and SpaceX. So like, to me, the good thing is that their blog post that talks about animal welfare was fairly long, and it was like, all the points were concisely made, despite it being long. But it's like, that just shows how much they're going through to make sure that the animals are taken care of. Also, I think it should be known that like most of the team members, they're not just gonna be like animal haters, right? Like many of them are trained veterinarians,
Yeah.
and therefore it's absolutely in their interest to make sure that the environment is as good as possible for the monkeys and other animals. And so they're gonna do their best to create that environment. And also, like other people who are team members oftentimes have relatives or family members who are affected by a lot of these diseases. And so they'll do their absolute best to make sure that things are being tested safely and the final device that's being potentially implanted in a human is as safe as possible.
So they shifted to having an office here in Texas, I think it was like during the pandemic, or earlier pandemic, right?
They have two offices, two main offices.
Okay.
One is in Fremont, California, and one is here in Austin.
What do you think about the addition to Texas?
It seems like Elon's moving all of his companies to Texas, and so it wouldn't surprise me if the Texas office becomes the primary office for Neuralink in the future.
And you think that Neuralink will be worth more than SpaceX?
I do think Neuralink has the potential to grow in valuation faster than SpaceX.
Okay.
It's a really tough. It's tough to know if Neuralink would be more valuable. If that ever happened, I would think that it would take like 30 or 40 years at least. But both of them just have unlimited potential, really.
But Neuralink isn't just about healthcare, and it's not just about fixing what's broken. Think about it. It can give us more knowledge and more computational ability than we could have ever achieved with just our prefrontal cortex. This is like so cool. Imagine never forgetting anything because all of your thoughts are backed up into the cloud. Or you wouldn't have to call your friend. You could just think those thoughts and beam those over to your friend and communicate that way. Sure, Neuralink is working to cure debilitating diseases that people suffer with, but it's also fighting another threat: artificial general intelligence. How will our economy function when almost all jobs are done by better robots that continually improve themselves? Can we even compete with a species that evolves in a matter of minutes? It may sound sinister, but what do we do if they decide that we're in the way? The theory is if you can't beat them, why don't we join them and fuse with AI? You know, it's interesting. We watched this local news report about the protests and the bus ads that they have for Neuralink here in Texas and, you know, being against it. And in the first few opening lines that the anchor was reading, she described Neuralink as a way for people to, you know, control their phones with their mind. And to me, that's so far from the most exciting primary purpose of this. Do you think that people are just misunderstanding that there's so much great potential for this and it's misconstrued for what its purpose is?
I'm certainly personally frustrated by that. I do my best on my podcast to share my primary inspiration, as I think it is not only something that I just want people to know, but I think it would also resonate with them. And I think it's kind of odd to me how much Elon is talking about the very longest term potential and need for something like Neuralink, because he's talked about how Neuralink is probably going to work on solving brain injuries for at least a decade, possibly 2 decades, prior to getting to that long-term vision of making sure that artificial general intelligence is not a huge threat to humanity. So there's kind of this balance of well, Elon's talking about both and both are potentially necessary, but at least for me, I want the public to know that these brain illnesses are the primary objective that they're working on for at least a decade, maybe 2.
It seems like there's also been recent negative media about all these co-founders leaving. Is that just kind of natural, or do you think that there's something bigger there?
I don't think there's anything bigger. The latest co-founder to leave was Paul Marola. The company started with several co-founders, and Paul was there for 5.5 years, working on the chip design and decoding algorithms. And 5.5 years is a pretty long time, especially in today's world, to be with a single company. And in his statement that when he was leaving, he talked about how he still loves the mission of Neuralink, and is looking forward to the things that they're going to produce. And really the main reason that he left was just because there's another opportunity. But I think that statement is really indicative of, well, the team. Oh, and also in that statement he said one of the things that he's going to miss the most is the great team at Neuralink. And I think that's the most misunderstood and underrated thing about Neuralink, and frankly Tesla and SpaceX and Boring Company as well. Like, just people don't realize how motivating it is to go to work and be working alongside such intelligent and passionate people.
Right, and you had, you know, a taste of this when you interned at Tesla.
Yeah, it was a fantastic experience, and that was like the best part of it. I mean, there's a lot of great things that come from like being at a company that has public exposure and working on cool products. But the thing that I took away the most was like my direct managers and mentors and team members just being super driven by the company mission and being so articulate and intelligent and just making decisions that seemed to just make sense versus going through a bunch of like unnecessary meetings and making decisions too slowly or making wrong decisions. Is just it's just underrated to by the public, I think, how powerful it is to have such a fascinating, great team.
So as we were talking about doing this interview, you were saying, I don't have a lot of the answers to some of these questions. And I think that's because like, there is not a lot of, you know, material resources out there, updates. It's very seldom that we get updates. So how do you stay in the loop? I mean, you're kind of like the main source for a lot of people. And, you know, is it frustrating that there isn't more coverage of this?
I certainly wish there was a little bit more coverage. The company is still young, and therefore, I think like as they grow, there's going to be a greater frequency of news releases. The last major update was in 2021 with the monkey Mind Pong demonstration. There's potentially going to be another one later this year or sometime next year, and I would love to like attend that one. For the time being, like just going through the human trial application review process and making progress on how the robot performs, optimizing the decoding algorithms, doing reiterations on the chip design, doing reiterations on the electrodes design. All of these things are just going to take time to be really refined and as good as possible. It's not like the team is slowing down or making less progress just because there's not that much news. It's like they're still continuing to make progress. Right. And they're still hiring, they're still growing their team. Yeah, and I just look forward to more news in the future.
Is there some like ambiguity or confusion of what exactly Elon's role is within Neuralink?
There is.
Can you set the record?
I am also not certain.
Okay.
I've done my best to like look into it.
Right.
And yeah, it's not clear to me whether he's CEO or not, or if there even is a CEO.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I know he spends the vast majority of his time at Tesla and SpaceX.
Right.
And it's rare that he spends much time at Neuralink and Boring Company, but he does sometimes.
Who's the ideal candidate for these preliminary first trials?
Paralyzed patients.
Do you have like a list of people that just follow you that are like, oh my gosh, let me know because I want to be a part of this?
Absolutely. I wish I could help. I can't. Like Neuropod and I are not affiliated with Neuralink, so yeah, we just really have no say.
Right.
So my recommendation is just do your best to reach out to Neuralink directly and or Elon on Twitter, I suppose.
Good luck.
Yeah, just it's so difficult because there's so many people that could be positively impacted, and so like when dealing with this type of stuff, I know how life-changing it could be.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. I've had people even reach out to me on my channel, and I've made one video about Neuralink with you, and they're like, you know, hey, I'm paralyzed or I have this problem. I would love to have this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it'd be great.
Yeah, I would love for it to be available for everybody worldwide too, you know, and it's like, just get reach out from different folks who are in countries around the world who they're just likely not going to get access as soon as those in the United States. So,
and there's other companies that are like tackling this, but why do you think Neuralink gets like the most attention?
Yeah, a lot of it is just simply due to Elon's exposure. I would say their aspirations seem to be so much bigger than every other company that I've seen who's operating in the space. I should also make sure to say that I've not explored every other competitor in great detail, but it also seems like Neuralink is probably the most invasive approach, like as invasive as you could get, I guess. Whereas there are some other companies who are working on like a device that gets implanted into the veins or network of veins, and you can get information from there. And there are other companies that are working on completely non-invasive approaches, like for example, Kernel, which we did like a headquarters visit on our channel, and I got to interview the founder, which is super interesting story and pretty interesting company. They're working on just basically a helmet, a wearable device helmet that measures activity in the brain, throughout the brain, but totally non-invasive, no surgery required.
What do you think scares people so much about, I mean, my understanding like is that it's a pretty small chip, right?
Yeah, it's very small, which is a fascinating engineering challenge that they've been working on. I actually was fortunate to be able to hold the coin-sized device like a week ago at a conference, and
Neuralinks.
Yeah, it's basically, it would replace, so it's like the size of a quarter. It would replace a section of skull. So you basically, a good way to think of it is like you're ice fishing, and you basically like drill a hole in the ice, or in this case in your skull, and replace it with, or cork it with this like quarter-sized implant. And but then I guess before that there are electrodes that get inserted into the brain. Then you put the quarter-sized thing, and then the chip in there connects wirelessly to your phone or other device. I am extremely inspired by what Neuralink is working on. I've always been inspired by what Tesla is working on, but Neuralink's depth of impact for any individual and their close relatives, friends and family is greater in depth than potentially any of other Elon's companies.
Neuralink's impact is like so personal compared to like saving the environment or making us multiplanetary. This is like potentially reversing dementia or, you know, paralysis, or just leading to a better life in general.
Right. Blindness, hearing loss, tinnitus, strokes, epilepsy, like all of these things are potentially solvable.
It almost sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, which there are some folks in the greater neuroscience community who think that the aspirations are not achievable. And Elon clearly disagrees, and I think his track record is quite good. So you can find our channel at Neurapod, Neura space Pod. And we just talk mainly about Neuralink, and then also competing companies and related topics like artificial intelligence or machine learning.
So do you follow much about Neuralink? Are you excited for this technology? Would you be rocking the chip as soon as you could? I feel like I definitely would. I know some people are opposed to the idea. Maybe it concerns them, maybe it scares them to think about a chip being implanted in their head, but I just see so many possibilities, even if you're not suffering from a debilitating disease, for it to make you basically this superhuman, you know, part robot, part human. It's super exciting to me, and I want to thank Ryan for being a guest on the Ellie in Space show. So hopefully you liked this episode. If you want to support the channel, please consider signing up for my Patreon, or you can just become a member. That's right here on YouTube. So thank you so much to everyone who is supporting Ellie in Space, and I will see you in the next video.